everybody. Welcome to Courtroom Insider. Today is June 6th, last day of school for my kids. They were so excited. We went to Chick-fil-A and before school started and got some chicken biscuits, took the traditional after-school picture, and now they are off for the summer, and we hope to have a lot of fun summer plans. But hope you're having a good week. You're going through trial withdrawals, any of you? I'll admit it's been a little odd being back in the office, not being at the courthouse, but it's been nice. I'm here in our actual studio here at East Idaho News in Idaho Falls. And I have another interview with a juror tonight, the four-person, the person that kind of led the discussion, led the deliberations. It's interesting because she actually was this close to getting dismissed because they had too many jurors. If you remember, they only needed 50, and then Judge Boyce called in that extra panel of potential jurors, and they ended up, I think 55 or 56 went through. Anyway, it ended up that because one of the people that was in the final group didn't live in the county anymore, they had to dismiss her. She had moved. Because of that, they needed Hannah, the girl you're about to meet, they needed her to stay. And because she stayed, she got picked, believe it or not. So there was the group of 50, I believe, and then each side got their preemptory challenges where they could eliminate a certain amount of people, and then whoever was left was the jury, and Hannah made it on the jury. And not only did she make it on the jury, she was elected to be the foreperson for the group. And she is a young mom, has a baby girl, was at the courthouse every day. She sat in the seat closest to the witness stand. And so she got to see them probably better than any of the other jurors. I mean, not that there was bad seating, but she was right there. She saw them walk up. She saw the whole thing. And she has said, excuse me, that this impacted her more than she ever thought possible. And obviously being a mom of a toddler, a case like this would. So we spoke earlier today. We actually spoke at 2:00, which if you remember, a week ago, that very moment is when the verdict was read in the case. And so she's had a week to think about the verdict, to think about everything that's happened since then. And I appreciate her talking with me. It's really good to chat with her. If you missed the earlier interviews I did with the jurors, you can also watch those with Nick and then the group of 6, including Nick, who were at the park, and then with Blake. We also spoke after. A lot of you giving really good feedback. I appreciate it. And I know that they appreciate it too. It does help for them to talk about the case as they sat through this and were in a seat that really nobody else other than their fellow jurors experienced. So why don't we jump to it? Here is my interview with Hannah. Okay, so here we are. I'm chatting with Hannah. Hannah, you were the leader of the group, right?
I was, yeah, the foreman.
The
The
foreman. How did
forewoman.
the forewoman? Yes, I believe it. I don't remember the term that the judge used when he read the instructions. As far as the leader, I forget what they said. But how did that come about? Is that something you volunteered for? Did they nominate you? What happened?
Yeah, so there was a few of us that were interested in being the presiding juror or foreman, whatever you want to call it. So someone suggested we draw from a cup. So there was 4 of us, and we put one paper that had an X on it. And if you drew that, then you're the person. So I just happened to draw the X, and everybody was okay with me being the presiding juror. And yeah, that's how that worked.
Presiding juror. Yeah, that's what the judge said. And if I recall, your seat was at the very end of the first row by the door.
Yeah.
And you were sitting closest to the witnesses the whole trial.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what was that experience like?
Um, it it was weird. I guess it kind of gave me a little anxiety when people would walk by, just not knowing what was going to happen, what they were there for. But uh, yeah, it was just kind of a lot of emotions.
Right. Let's go back to before the trial even started and you got the summons in the mail. Did you know anything about the case? Did you know that this big trial was coming up?
I had no idea that this was coming up previously. I remember I think seeing on the news or an article or something about people fleeing to Hawaii and kids missing, but that's the extent of what I knew um, about it beforehand.
So after you came in for questioning, well, you did the questionnaire first, then you came in for questioning. Did you want to be on the jury? Did you care?
Um, I didn't really have a stance on it either way. I was okay if I did get chosen or if not. Um, yeah, I was fine either way.
Okay, so you do get picked, and then you go in that first day, opening statements. What was your response when you heard all of that stuff right there on the first day when they set out the case, the prosecutors?
I was in shock, honestly. Just all of the information, what had happened, that there were dead children, and all of that. It was really intense. It was a lot, and I even I actually was technically excused on the day where it was just the 50. uh, I was a part of the 5 extras that, in case people didn't show up that day, they had villains. And so they called my number to be excused, but said, stay seated just for now. I know they asked the prosecutor and defense, if there was anything else that we needed to check on. And the prosecutor brought up if anyone had moved from Ada County to a different county, and there ended up being one person that did. She got called back to the judges, yeah, the
Yeah.
judges' chambers, and didn't come back. And then the marshals came to my back row and said my number and said, "Oh, actually, you're moving up here, and you're not excused anymore." So to be going from excused and like, okay, I'm gonna go home, to okay, now you actually are a part of this and in this jury, was a crazy experience.
Wow. Not only that, you then went on to become the foreman of the jury. So you were almost saved had that woman lived in the county. But are
Yeah.
you looking back now? I mean, I don't want to say are you glad you got picked, but what are your overall thoughts? I'm sure that it's an experience you'll never have again, but what's your take now that you've had a few days to digest?
Yeah, it's hard to say that I was like glad to be a part of it. Being surrounded by the people I am thankful for that. They were a good support system, the marshals and everything, being able to meet all these people. Um, the situation, obviously not a great circumstance to um, do this, but I am glad that I was able to be a part of this, because I think it's going to be a big um, part of history that he got found guilty, and we all made the right decision.
Yeah. Tell me about the witnesses that stood out to you. Was there one that really kind of sealed it for you that he was guilty?
I have a hard time recalling names because there were so many. Um, Definitely a lot of the law enforcement and the FBI agents, I would say, where we were getting the data tracking from Google and the text messages from Lori's iCloud. All of that together just made the case solid. The prosecution really did their job in bringing in the right witnesses to show the evidence and prove all the facts. Yeah.
Yeah. There was some moments I noticed you teared up during the trial, especially when the autopsy photos of JJ were shown. You, along with several other jurors, but I do remember seeing you in that first seat. What was that day like?
That was definitely the hardest day. Um, Nobody wants to see that. And Um, there's not a lot you can say. Um, it'll live with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So, it was really hard day, the hardest day, I would say, for me.
Right. I remember the judge took a break after that portion of testimony, and I can't imagine the feeling in the room for you all when you walked out. Was it just heavy, quiet, or were people, crying? What would you remember?
It was pretty silent. It was probably the loudest silence ever in the room. I think a lot of us were trying to hold back as much as we could until we could kind of get away on our own to the bathrooms and kind of let it out and not have to do that in front of the whole group.
Right.
So yeah, some of us were holding back until we could have that moment to ourselves, because you don't really get to be by yourself when you're in the courthouse. Yeah.
Yeah. Hannah, what was it like at the end of each day, going home and having heard so many intense, deep, crazy, for lack of a better word, stuff, and you can't talk about it with anyone?
Um, it was really hard. I have a little one at home, and so getting home, it made me, just treasure her and my family even more. Um, Not being able to talk to anyone about it was definitely hard. My husband would watch the live stream every day, and thankfully he had a coworker to kind of discuss the case with instead of, coming to me. Um, and so we just kind of went about our regular lives when I got home. Uh, it was, I know a few of the jurors mentioned previously, it was draining, exhausting, and I didn't expect that uh, to be so emotionally and mentally drained at the end of each day.
Right. So your husband was watching so he could keep up on it, knowing what you had experienced that day.
Yeah, yeah. So he he was there for me and made sure that I was okay. So that was really helpful.
Were you anxious to hear from the defense? I mean, we heard 67 prosecutor witnesses. Some of them were called a few times. When it came time for the defense, were you like, all right, let's hear it? Or had you made up your mind at that point? Where was your mind?
I hadn't made up my mind at that point. I was giving the defense his chance to bring on things to prove his innocence, um, give us an idea of, maybe this wasn't how things happened. Um, Unfortunately, that never happened.
Did any of the defense witnesses or questioning stick?
Honestly, no. Uh, I think somebody said before it more so hurt him than helped with
Hmm.
some of the witnesses.
What did you think when his kids testified?
That was kind of hard to watch, in a way, sad. I noticed in particular with Emma that during her testimony, she didn't seem to ever get upset or sad about her mom passing. Uh, but when they showed the video of her and her dad in the back of the cop car, she was bawling, and that really confused me. I I don't understand that.
Yeah. And then it came time to decide first the guilty or not guilty. And I know the other jurors have said there really wasn't much question there, but it was kind of a relief because you all got to finally talk. What were what were
Yeah.
what were your thoughts when you finally got to get in that room and you could discuss everything you just heard for the past 8 weeks?
say it was kind of like therapy, being able to finally put it out there and have people say things that you have been thinking, and putting it all together. That first night that we were able to talk was we needed.
Yeah. And then you get to go not home, but to the hotel. What was sequestration like?
I'd say the first night was absolutely terrible.
Was it?
um, I think everybody was just kind of on edge with, making sure there was no mishaps or anything like that. So we weren't allowed to leave our rooms. If you had brought DVDs, you could have watched a movie, but I didn't. I thought that they'd have them supplied there, at least a few of them, but they didn't get there until later in the night. So it was at least 3 hours of just sitting in silence in a room and not being able to contact family. For that time was really hard. But it did get better as time went on. But yeah,
But
being sequestered is not fun.
you couldn't turn on the TV. You didn't have your phone. You couldn't listen to the radio. And so you really just had to sit there, right? Like until those DVDs arrived.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Um, so then the next day you go in because that was, I believe it was Wednesday night. So what, a week ago yesterday? Actually,
Yeah.
a week ago right now, when we're taping this, I think is when the verdict was announced at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So a week ago, last night, you all come back Thursday morning. And was that pretty much you're taking charge? Like, all right, let's take a vote. You're kind of leading the discussion. Is that how things went?
Yeah. As being the presiding juror, I wanted to make sure that everyone felt that they had spoken their mind, said what they wanted, and didn't feel like, when we go home, I should have said this, or, feel like they missed out on something. So I really tried to make sure everyone was able to talk and um, nobody was being interrupted and speaking over each other. So that morning was kind of just everybody gets a chance to start this discussion and talk about everything, go through each of the counts and make sure we're all on the same page. We even went around the room probably 2 or 3 times to make sure with each person that guilty was the verdict that they chose. Even everybody wrote on a paper guilty or not guilty to make sure in case somebody didn't want to speak up right at that moment, and it was unanimous.
Was there kind of a relief at that moment? Like, okay, we got through this part.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot more intense with the other jurors, if there was differing opinions. Um, but yeah, it was a relief that everybody agreed.
And then you go back in the courtroom and it's announced, and then you're not done. You go back to the hotel. Is that the night that they let you go to a park?
Yeah, they took us to a park. They blocked off part of the path so we could go for a little nature walk. They really went above and beyond, the marshals and the jury commissioner, to, I think that they understood that first night was really hard for a lot of us, so they were trying to give us a little bit more of normalcy.
But
If you
they
can,
still,
yeah.
from what I understood, is didn't they still close the park or at least part of the park to the public for you
Mm-hmm.
guys?
Yeah, nobody was able to access us.
Then you go back to the hotel knowing that the next day, this is the big decision. I mean, this is,
Mm-hmm.
but before that, there's all those witness impact or the victim impact statements. What was it like hearing from those several victims as they read, spoke from their heart and read their statements?
Um, it, it was sad. It hurt to hear how much hurt that they have gone through and are still dealing with. They brought each person, Tammy, Tylee, and JJ, to life in their statements, which was hard to hear, but I'm glad that they got to speak.
What did you think about Chad Daybell not speaking?
I can't say I was surprised. Throughout the whole trial, he really never gave anything, emotionally, gesture wise. He'd do a couple nods here and there. I wasn't surprised.
Yeah. And were you surprised that they had no witnesses for him, no mitigation for him? It was just, we're not going to present a case at that moment.
I was waiting for that, hopeful that there was something, but again, I mean, all the facts and the evidence, it makes sense that nobody would have done a statement for him.
Okay, then tell us about what you can about the deliberations amongst you all now when you're determining whether he serves life in prison or death penalty. Was that a harder decision? Were things heavier in the room during that part?
It was definitely heavier. I know a good portion of our jury was not ready to go ahead with the decision. They needed a night to sleep on it, which is understandable. It is a big deal and it is a big decision. All of the instructions that we were given by the court, I don't want to say made it easy, but it was laid out to make our job a little bit easier. So it was heavy, yeah.
Right, because I think a lot of people don't understand that you're following the instructions that the judge gives you and the court gives you, and it's laid out. Was this qualification met, or was this met? Yes, no. As an example, just, broadly speaking, it's not like it's, what are your thoughts about the death penalty of a case from years ago or something like that? You're really just following the instructions, and they make it clear when you're interviewed in the beginning that, can you follow the instructions? Even if you think your way is better, even if you think you have another way that might be more efficient, you have to follow the court's instructions. And when this part came, did you end up doing like another vote, like everybody write it down and turn it in?
Well, we didn't this time. We went around the room like we did prior, and probably 2 or 3 times just to make sure that we all agreed. It did take a bit longer for this portion, I think, because we wanted to make sure that, one, we were following the rules correctly, and just making sure that everybody has said what they wanted. But yeah, before coming to jury duty, I didn't realize that it wasn't your personal opinion on the death penalty. You follow the rules that the court gives you, which I'm glad that that's in place.
Yeah. I'm sure there was some talk, though, that maybe the questions could be a little simpler, or at least in more layman's terms, because even when that verdict was being read at the end, the sentencing, I'm like, wait, like there's a double negative. What does it say? Did you have to ask for clarification at all? Because, for people that aren't in the court system every day, some of that can be really confusing.
Yeah. So once as we kind of decided on everything, we all agreed that it would be best to ask the judge through like our documentation sheet, just to verify that the way we are answering is the way that we think we're answering. Because to go out there in the courtroom in front of all those people and have him say the wrong thing, that would be a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, you might have to stand up as the jury four person. Wait, that's not what we
Yeah.
meant.
Yeah, no, that would not be fun.
Yeah. What was it like then after that, leaving the courthouse, leaving the courtroom, a place you've been almost every day for 2 months?
I don't know if anyone else felt this, 'cause I haven't talked about it with anyone else, but as soon as we got to the elevators to go downstairs to the parking garage and get out of there, I just kind of broke down. It was like a release of emotions that have been bottled up the entire time. Um, and I couldn't help it. I just felt like, okay, this is over. This is done. At least our portion. And yeah, I don't know if anyone else felt that way, but it was a lot to me.
Yeah, Blake told me the other day when he got in his car, he sat there for 30 or 40 minutes just crying, like so many emotions going through your mind. I don't think, well, let me ask you, did you think it would be as mentally taxing as it was before you started service?
No, I had no idea. I thought, the judge said would try and get out at 3:30 every day. I was like, well, that's great. I can, go walk the dogs, go work out, take my baby to the park, things like that. And I was even too exhausted to like think about what to do for dinner, even like cook it. It was so draining, more draining than anything I've ever experienced.
Yeah. I would imagine too, as a new mom, this case is about kids, and we saw pictures of them often, and good pictures and awful pictures. Were you thinking about your child and thinking about being a mom? I'm sure it would have had to cross your mind every day.
It was hard not to. Um, just kind of thinking like, how could somebody do this? Um, you're supposed to be their protector. So yeah, it was really hard. Um, just coming home and being with her and thinking how these kids, they thought that they were protected and safe, and they took that away from them.
Yeah. What was it like sitting there across from Chad Daybell? Did you ever try to study him or ever try to make eye contact or connect to him?
I did. Frequently make eye contact with him. We'd lock eyes. Um, I think one of the other jurors said they made a pact with themselves to not break eye contact first, and that was my same thought. Um, and there was no life behind his eyes. I didn't see anything. It's just dark.
Yeah. So looking back now, how would you describe the overall experience?
Intense, uh, filled with a lot of emotions. Um, the trial itself was nothing I've ever experienced before. It's nothing like it is on TV. Um, outside of that, I met the most amazing people, the other jurors, the marshals, uh, the judge, um, everyone surrounding was amazing. So at least there was that good to it.
I'm sure there were moments for those people that aren't familiar with the court system that you're wondering what in the heck is going on here. I interviewed one of Lori Vallow's jurors, and she said that she actually thought Lori Vallow was one of the attorneys in the beginning. She didn't know where the defendant sat and the prosecutor sat. And when they asked for a sidebar, what's a sidebar? Why are they playing white noise overhead? And then often you all are dismissed during those sidebars while the gallery remains in there. I mean, in the beginning, was it kind of like you were in a foreign environment, not trying to figure things out?
It really was. I was thrown for a loop. I didn't understand any of the legal jargon. And it was kind of hard to keep up with the first week or two until you like catch on. But yeah, it is it's a lot of stuff that you don't realize. And I've learned a lot about our judicial system and how the court works and things like that, that I don't think the average person would really know unless they've been through it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the people that would come every day and sit in the gallery? Did you know it was as high profile as it was?
Um, from what other people have said, I realized it was like high profile. Um,
Like
I
after
think,
the fact?
yeah,
Right.
after the fact that we were in it, we kind of tried to like keep track of who was in the gallery, and um, just not knowing who is who. We all kind of made the joke that it would be nice if the gallery could wear name tags so that we would know who is who. Um, like we have to wear our little juror badge. So we did watch some to see kind of the reactions and who was out there, and but it's kind of hard to tell.
I remember what the same Vallow juror told me that there was a reporter from New York who would come often during the Vallow trial. He had really long hair. They called him Fabio. So they had nicknames for people in the gallery. And yeah, you do kind of recognize the same people that come regularly. And then there's just kind of one-off people here and there. And sometimes the benches are all full and sometimes they're not. But I appreciate your service, Hannah. Is there anything that you would want people to know about your experience, about serving on jury duty, about what you've just gone through that they might not know?
Uh, I hope a majority of people don't have to go through jury duty for a case like this. I hope that when they go through jury duty, it's for something like a parking ticket. It is an important job for us to do. But if it's ever a case like this, just be prepared. It's a lot. Um, yeah, I don't have much else than that.
Have you gone back and done research on the case since last Saturday?
I have, yeah. Um, just the curiosity of, wanting to know the rest. Like I didn't know anything about how Lori's trial went, and going back and seeing that, um, seeing watching the video of the judge giving the sentencing to Lori, and going down Reddit rabbit holes. uh, they're endless. There's so much information out there, and honestly, I think I need to take a break and be away from this. But talking about it has been really helpful for closure.
Right. I often said I did a nightly live broadcast recapping the events of the day during Vallow's and Daybell's trial. And it actually was quite helpful for me at the end of every day to just talk for an hour about what I had witnessed, even though no one was there responding. So I would tell you that, and based on everybody else I've talked to just talk about it with people that will listen, and they don't necessarily need to give advice or anything. Just talk about it. Did you watch the Netflix show or Dateline? I think we've done like 9 or 10 Datelines on it. There's a podcast. There's a lot out there, but you're right. You might want to just not become obsessed with it.
Yeah, I did watch the Netflix documentary. And that, again, it made me just really sad for the victims. I can't imagine what they're all have been going through the past 4.5 or 5 years. Um, I know how I feel, and I know it's incomparable to what they've had to deal with. So that's why I need to take a step back and take a break from all this. As being an empath, I feel everyone else's feelings a lot.
Yeah. Is there anything you've learned since Saturday that you found like really fascinating, or any part of the case you didn't know about, but you've seen since then that you've been like, oh, wow, like that's wild or that's interesting?
Um, Nothing really in particular. I am curious to see how Arizona goes with Lori's other trial. Um, I am glad one point that in the trial for Lori previously, Judge Boyce, he had she had asked to be excused from seeing the pictures of the autopsies, and I'm glad that that was denied.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that day. It was on day 1 or 2, very early on. She asked to leave, and at the sentencing, the judge said, you wanted the jurors to have to see these photos, but you didn't. So yeah, that
Yeah.
was a memorable moment from her trial for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much. I appreciate you chatting and sharing your experience. And do you think that you might one day down the road decide to pop in to observe a trial, or are you kind of trialed out?
Uh, Maybe a while down the road, maybe. I we tried to watch like a true crime show, and I couldn't really stomach it. So it might be a while.
Yeah, yeah. Well, go take care of your baby. Thank you for serving, and it's so nice meeting you.
It was nice to meet you too. Thank you.
A big thanks to Hannah for chatting with me, for being so open about her experience. This is something that doesn't just go away. It's not like you get out of court Saturday and you're back at work Monday. Maybe if you were on a jury for a day or two for a parking ticket, like she said, or something like that, you could do that. But this was not a typical case. And so I appreciate her for chatting with me. Again, you can go back and watch some of the previous juror interviews in case you missed those. And well, I'll have some other interviews coming up here in the next couple of days, early next week. I'll have some that you'll definitely want to watch with other people involved in the case. And then I hope to have more as the month continues and as the case continues. The latest news, by the way, we had yesterday, Chad Daybell has officially appealed. So he is no surprise there. John Pryor filed an appeal, and then the state will appoint some appellate attorneys, I believe 2 of them, to take his case. They'll review his side. The attorney general will review the prosecutor's side. The Supreme Court of Idaho will eventually hear the case, probably in a year or 2 or longer. And then they will decide if something was wrong. And if there was something wrong and the case gets overturned, we could have another trial. But if it's not, it will continue on until Chad Daybell ultimately goes to the execution chamber and is executed. And that won't happen for quite some time, based on tradition, based on the past. But he becomes the 9th, I believe, the 9th person on death row in Idaho. 1 woman, 8 men. And he's in the maximum security facility in Idaho. There's set rules. I'm working on it. I've requested and working on it. Hopefully next week I'll have a whole story and we'll do a Courtroom Insider about what is life like on death row? What is life like in the maximum security facility? Do they get visitors? Do they get access to phones, tablets, all that sort of stuff? But working to get those details nailed down. And I'd love to go on a tour and show you, but cameras never, I shouldn't say never, hardly ever get into Idaho prisons. It is very, very secure with cameras. So I don't think we'll be getting a camera in there. But if so, I will do a tour and I will show you what it's all about in the Idaho prison. All right, that's it for tonight for Courtroom Insider. Thank you again so much for watching, for continuing to watch, even though the trial is over. And we will see you again soon. I hope you have a good weekend. It's Emmy's birthday this weekend, my daughter, so she's got her party planned for tomorrow. And Saturday, I'm speaking at a graduation. I don't know what to say, but I hope it's good. And it'll be nice to have a weekend home with the family, and I don't have to rush back to Boise on Sunday. But next week, there will be some more Courtroom Insiders. So stay tuned for those. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.